This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Good morning, everybody. Thursday, April 9th. Great to be with you. I took optimism from Jerry Lynn's comments a few minutes ago about the weather office giving us good news. I have a standing bet that I have with Dave Neal from the Gander Weather Office and his colleague James in Moncton, because they've been on a lot recently, thankfully, and they're so wonderful to do it. Everybody in the weather office is awesome to VOCM, but we've been on my show often about the weather and the storms. So I've said the first one that can come on and tell us, the audience, and tell me, the host, that we are going to have a 20-degree plus day with sunny weather, you get $20. I mean, I don't know if that's inducing or appealing. I don't even know if that's legal. I don't have a lottery license, Atlantic Lotto. Anyway, it's out there, and I know the team at the weather office can't control the weather, but boy, it's nice to have some sun and some bright light, because there's a lot of darkness out there. A few things before I get into a little bit more of a coherent ramble, if they ever are coherent, who knows with me. I want to thank Darren Colburn. He reached out to me the other day when I was talking about the herder, and he reminded me, and I did know this, but thank you, Darren, for reminding me, and I appreciated it, that Deer Lake were not going to the Allen Cup. I remember that had been announced before, that in fact Clarenville and Conception Bay are playing in the Allen Cup for Newfoundland and Labrador in a few weeks, I believe it is. The Allen Cup, anyway, great hockey. Good to see two Newfoundland and Labrador teams in there. Congratulations again to Deer Lake. All of the news and controversies around the herder and the recent death of Bill Riley reminds me of the late 80s and just how much fun and enjoyment and entertainment we took from senior hockey in Newfoundland. And it's good, even when the headlines are not the best, to be talking about senior hockey in Newfoundland and the Herder Trophy, because it's produced so much for our province, some great athletes, community pride, and the like. So there you go. I'm going to keep on the hockey theme for a moment, because a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but this is more a mental health story, and I think enough of you who listen to me, thank you for listening, know mental health is important to me, and talking about mental health and wellness is important to me. As I've said before, like many of you, I've had my own challenges with mental health in the past, and I'm lucky, knock on wood today, as I knock firmly on my forehead, I'm pretty good today. But the story of Linus Ullmark, for those of you who don't know, Linus Ullmark is the goaltender for the Ottawa Senators. He, of course, took a leave of absence earlier in the year, and he then did what I thought was a very moving sit-down interview with Claire Hanna of TSN. And he talked about his struggles with mental health and what he's gone through. And I thought that was very brave, because there'd been a whole controversy suggesting other things had happened, and that Ullmark was a curse on the team, and he betrayed loyalties of players. If you want to read more about that nonsense, you can Google the conspiracy theories. 2 weekends ago, Linus Ullmark, who's been back with the team now for about 6 weeks, sat out a big game against Florida. And he had played the night before, and he was supposed to play against the Florida Panthers, of course, defending Stanley Cup champions, so they won't be this year. They're not going to make the playoffs. And it was a key game because the Senators are in a playoff race. And the message that was conveyed by the team was that he was tired. A lot of hockey commentators, seemingly forgetting that he had dealt with mental illness, just jumped all over them, called out his character, said he wasn't tough, said you gotta gut it out. Now, how many of us who've played in sports have heard you gotta gut it out? And most often we've all gutted it out. Hooray, hooray, hooray. But Allmark took a lot of heat from some very prominent NHL commentators who were like, "No, not good enough, be tougher, be tougher." The Tkachuk family was woven into the controversy, some thinking that Keith Tkachuk, the patriarch of the family, had said something about Allmark. Anyway, whatever. It turned into a circus. Allmark has just played 5 straight games. And he was asked the other day about, well, what happened with Florida? And I thought he gave a very compelling answer. And anybody who struggled with mental illness knows this. He said, I'm broken. And it's a pretty friggin' brave thing to say. He'll probably play tonight. They are playing Florida again tonight. They are in the playoffs. But anybody who's dealt with mental illness themselves or in the family knows what he means. Yeah, you do get tired. Sometimes you are unable to function properly, whether you're a professional athlete or somebody who's working at a store. You get broken. You don't get fixed overnight. So shame on all those people who, questioned his toughness. This is the problem. This is the problem sometimes with mental health and wellness. The stigmas still exist. And boy, did Allmark live through all of that. Whether the Senators get to the playoffs or not, I hope a lot of people take a deep breath before they jump on the train of chastising an athlete or anybody's character or courage without knowing all of the facts. I'm going to stop there because that one gets me really emotional. Let's talk a couple of things closer to home that are in the news. Of course, the story that Sarah Smelly put out, Sarah's a great reporter with the Canadian Press, that talked about some of the donations that were made in the provincial election, and the fact that what Sarah does continue to highlight, which we'll start with that, there are no donation limits in the government of Newfoundland, or the electoral system of Newfoundland and Labrador. Never really been, that I know of, a push to have donation limits and the like, but there is public reporting, so the parties do tell you who donated and what they donated, so we are able to know that. The provincial Liberals in the last election collected nearly $1.28 million in donations, and the Conservatives had $1.06. The NDP gathered more than $250,000 in contributions, including $16,000 from the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor and $11,000 from the Canadian Union of Public Employees. The highlight of the story, the one that's getting the attention, and you've seen the Liberals speak out about this already, is former Premier Danny Williams personally donated $46,000, then through a couple of corporate entities donated a little bit more. That has got a lot of people quite irritated because they are angry at Premier Williams, because Premier Williams was a critic of the deal that the Liberal government had signed with Quebec. The Liberals put out some social media last night saying that, I think it was 50+ thousand bought you the ability to take down a multi-billion-dollar deal. Love Premier Williams, hate Premier Williams. Nothing prevented him from making those donations. But I know a lot of people are angry, and we'll talk about that today. To be fair to the former premier, he was at least transparent in telling people where he stood on the deal, which still exists, and he knew when he donated he was going to be subject to this media coverage. So that is that. I mean, I think the bigger issue here is, okay, if you're worried about how much money people can donate, then let's put in some limits. Let's lock it down. Let's build a system. In the federal system, you can only donate just under $1,800 to a candidate. And there are limits for how much you can donate to a party, and there's a total limit for all of that. So flail on Danny Williams. That's your right to do so. But the real issue is the system, because equally there will be some in a different time, in a different circumstance, who might find it problematic that there was $16,000 contributed by the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor, or that the company Marco contributed some money, or that Ocean Choice contributed some money. All of this is public. You can see it. You can express your opinion. But if you don't like the amounts the people are given, let's regulate it then. I'm not a big fan of regulation, but if we're all going to lose our minds over somebody giving a lot of money, recognize that our laws allow that to happen. So the problem, I think, are the laws. And if you want to change them, let's talk about doing all of that. Okay, I want to stay in the politics realm for a moment. It was a big day yesterday for Mark Carney. He got another MP, a very right-leaning conservative MP from Sarnia by the name of Marilyn Gladue, has now joined Team Carney. For those who don't know, Ms. Gladue was part of the anti-vax crowd in the Conservative Party. She is very much a social conservative. None of those things may have bothered you, but they probably are bothering some of the Liberal Party. I've seen some social media to suggest that. Mark Carney has looked past all of that and says his party is about unity, not uniformity. Actually, that was his AI minister, Evan Solomon, who said all of that. Mark Carney now has 171 seats. He is one short of a technical majority, meaning that he would need the Speaker to vote for him. He has 3 by-elections. He and the other parties have 3 by-elections on Monday. Quite likely this time next week the Liberals will have a majority. Now, a lot of people, again, expressing a lot of frustration about how he is going about getting a majority by having MPs cross the floor. So far, 5 of them have crossed the floor, 4 Conservatives, 1 New Democrat. It's revived the debate about, all right, if you cross the floor, you should step down and there should be a by-election and it should be sorted out that way. Again, I will be the historical doomsayer here and point out that for 200 years plus in the British parliamentary system, people have been crossing the floor. You, the electorate, do get a chance to sort it all out at the time of the next election. But if you think there should be things like immediate by-elections, let's talk about all that today, because I did get some really pointed messages last night from some friends of mine who aren't uber political, who are all friggin' worked up about this. So want to talk about that, how Carney's going about it, we can. You want to talk about the state of the federal Conservatives, probably not the best thing for Pierre Poilievre to have yet another MP walk across the floor. When the people who you serve with do that, that raises questions about your leadership, so much so that the Toronto Star, not a friend of the Conservative Party, to be fair, had a story last night written by our own Newfoundlander, Tonda McCharles, the bureau chief. She and others wrote a story that up to 40 MPs fear they will lose under Pierre Poilievre. This follows a story that was in the Toronto Star earlier in the week about Conservatives being unhappy with Poilievre, asking them to justify some of the roles they have in the shadow cabinet. So there's all that. It's another story in Newfoundland and Labrador about a system broken. Boy, every day we've had something about a system broken. The Evening Telegram is running a story where they are talking about, I've talked to a bunch of people who say our child care system is broken because there aren't enough ECEs. It's not sustaining itself. I've heard that before. I certainly think we should talk about that. If you want to talk about that, I have a tremendous amount of respect for ECEs. It's important. But with all these systems not working, what's going to collapse first, or are they broken? What do we want to do about it? We whinge and we whine, and this is a great place to do it. I'll take all whingers, whiners, and thoughtful people who would like to come on. But what do we want to do with all of that, or what are we going to expect in terms of action if we ourselves, not just the politicians, are we ourselves prepared to take some of the pain that may come with systemic reform? Speaking of systemic reform, and I'll kind of wrap up on this one, Jonathan Galgay from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business was on with Jerry Lynn and Russell on your VOCM mornings, talking about the challenges business owners are dealing with around crime. I spoke to one of his colleagues yesterday nationally, and he was making the same point. They want to see more to be done, and what a challenge business is facing. It isn't just shoplifting necessarily, and that's not to diminish the impact that has on a store. There's a lot of things happening. It's another risk for business. It drives up insurance. It drives up the expenses you try and pay to protect your premises. What do you think about that? I may play that interview a little later on. I also may play an interview I did with another general yesterday about all that is going on in the world, because I did love this morning Jerry Lynn talking to a bunch of U13 hockey players about Donald Trump. We got so much we can get into, and we can revisit our discussion on trap houses, because let me tell you, I don't think that's finished. Lots and lots to talk about today on Open Line. I hope you'll give us a call. Time for our first break. Back with more in a moment. All right, before I go to my real callers, I have my own caller on the line, my son Patrick. He wants to say something. Say it, Patrick.
Hi, Newfoundland. Hi, Mimi. 6-7.
There you go. All right. Hi, Newfoundland. Hi, Mimi. 6-7. That is the depth of Padgy's call today. He's off to school. I'm on to municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, we were talking about things being challenged and broken in Newfoundland. Municipalities in Newfoundland and Labrador feel that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on their infrastructure, their water systems, their fire departments, so much that we rely on from our municipalities. To talk about this and what municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, is hoping to achieve, we're joined by Alexis Foster. Alexis is the Director of Advocacy and Communications. And Alexis, you can say 6-7 if you want to be with the cool kids, or you can just talk about your topic, whatever you like.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me this morning, Tim.
Great to have you. So the budget's coming. What are you looking for?
Well, as you mentioned just a few moments ago, municipalities in Newfoundland and Labrador are facing a lot of struggles right now when it comes to funding and infrastructure. Specifically, many other topics as well are challenging at the moment. But municipalities in our province are responsible for over 60% of the infrastructure. So when you get up in the morning and you go out through your door, you're traveling on the roads, going over bridges, using the water, all of this municipalities are responsible for. So we really need to have some additional changes made so that we are better supporting our communities across the province. So municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, is really asking the province, the provincial government, to follow through on their promises, especially those from the throne speech, which would address some of these concerns.
Yes, so talk to some of those specific promises that are of key importance to you and you would like to see actioned.
Yeah, so some of the key things that we would love to see actioned is continuing to work with municipalities for long-term plans for roads, water, and sewer infrastructure. Specifically, water, when we're talking about drinking water, we have over 100 communities within the province that are under boil water advisories. Unfortunately, some of these are decades long. We live in 2026 right now. It should not be an issue having drinkable water for our communities. Wastewater as well. There was a wastewater systems effluent regulations which were put out by the federal government back in 2012. And in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have 114 communities who are not compliant with this, which this means is they're putting their wastewater out into the ocean. It's not being treated. So municipalities now have to come up with a plan to treat that wastewater. In order to do that, that's going to cost a lot of money, much of which municipalities do not have. We're talking most of our municipalities are under 500 people. Besides 23 are actually under 3,000. So we definitely need more resources and more support from both the provincial and federal government. So we're really hopeful that we will see in this budget that there will be some support for municipalities there when it comes to infrastructure development.
Now, a lot of the support for municipalities from the federal government has come through something your organization, through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, has long advocated for and been successful getting, and that's gas tax revenue and a portion of all of that. Are there options there, Alex, to change that formula, to increase that? Are you looking at existing revenue tools that the federal and provincial governments have to help address your priorities?
Yes, that's a great question, actually. So what we are asking for is actually a reallocation of tax dollars. We're not asking for anybody to pay any more taxes. We already know what the cost of living is like everybody is finding it difficult. But as I mentioned, municipalities are responsible for 60% of the infrastructure in our communities. But when it comes to the tax dollars that they receive about 10 cents on every tax dollar, but you're responsible for 60% of the infrastructure. So we definitely need a better plan for how that money is allocated to our municipalities so that we can ensure that the projects that need to get done are actually getting the funding to be completed.
Last one for you. How has the reception been from the new provincial government so far? This will be their first budget of significance. How have they been when they've been presented with your concerns?
Well, so far, whenever we've met with them, they seem to reiterate that they understand many of these issues. We did witness that through the throne speech, which is why we are really calling on them to follow through on those promises. They do identify that infrastructure, safety, security, cell phone coverage, making sure volunteer firefighters are actually paid for the work and compensated in some way. They recognize that these things are incredibly important. So we appreciate the recognition, and we're hopeful that this budget will actually have the action behind those words to follow through on some of those promises.
All right. Well, we'll be watching. Appreciate the time today, Alexis. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. That's Alexis Foster with Municipalities NL. She's the Director of Advocacy. Gus is on the line. He wants to have a go at floor crossing. Well, I don't know, Gus, if you want to cross the floor, but you've got an opinion on it. Tell us about it.
How you doing, Tim? Good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Gus.
Just my humble opinion, which is probably worth about 2 cents, but I'm going to
I'll give you three,
anyway.
Gus. I'll give you three, at least 3 cents. Go ahead, buddy.
Great. My opinion is that anybody gets elected to one party should not be allowed, once they get elected for that party, to cross over to the opponent's party. Mm-hmm. Now, what we have here is somebody, I suppose you will call it dishonest in a way, because if they wanted that particular person to get elected to that party, that party would have elected. But to have the party that's receiving that person to be glad handing them and really happy that he's crossing the floor and coming over, there's something not right about that, because what that person has done was disenfranchise all the people that voted for that particular person to represent them at that particular party. But what they've done now, they made everybody there quite unhappy, because they would be saying, I never voted for you to go to that party. I voted you to stay the party that we put you to. And if you didn't like that, well, I'm surprised that there is not a law, federally or provincially, that says if you get elected for one party and you don't feel like you want to run for that party for the next couple of years for some reason that occurred after you got elected, well, then there should be a by-election, and there should be federal law or provincial law that says you must have a by-election.
Yeah, and certainly, Gus, that's an opinion a lot of people have. There's nothing wrong with that opinion. I would just say, I think if you're going to have, if you're going to have the law, you got to have circumstances in it, because like any other workplace, there may be it mightn't just be, as everybody thinks it is, political opportunism. And our democracy, not that it can't change, has worked this way for a long time. I mean, I'll give you two people who crossed the floor that I think most people have positive views of over time. One is Winston Churchill, who crossed twice, and John Crosby, who left Joey Smallwood and went to Frank Moores, and the electorate in both cases had the opportunity to weigh verdicts on both of them, and in both cases they felt they weren't aligned anymore with the leadership of their particular parties. Does any of that matter?
If I might interrupt.
Yo, go ahead,
Tim.
Gus. Go ahead, sir.
I don't care if it was Winston Churchill or whoever it was. The fact who they are doesn't make it right. Right is right when everything is wrong. And my opinion is the most honest thing to do, and it's not rocket scientist, that if I decide, ask you to support me in an election, and I fail to come through with that request, well, nobody's going to get upset if the law says if you get elected for a party and you get there and then you cross over to the opponent's party, what's wrong with it? There's nothing dishonest about having a by-election and let everybody go back at it again. It's supposed to take 6 months, but at least it's the right thing and the fair thing to do instead of everybody sometime. You got 4 or 5 people already gone over to the present party in power in Ottawa, which if these people wanted their people to vote for him, they would have voted. They had the chance. But so now you've disenfranchised all these people. You did away with their democratic right to vote who they want represented, and for the opposition man representing them, glad having them coming across the floor and feeling happy about it. I don't see why anybody should be happy about that. I think it's an air of dishonesty about it.
All right. Well, Gus, appreciate your opinion and your perspective, and look forward to more quality calls like that. Thank you for making the time for us today.
Yeah, have a good day, Tim.
Take care, Gus. Okay, that is
Bye-bye.
Gus Kenny. Bye, Gus. I got a very strong view, as many people do, on what should happen when you cross the floor. The only thing I would add, and I didn't get a chance there, recent by-election costs. I don't know what the 3 are costing right now in Ontario and Quebec, but Poilievre's recent by-election, where a member of Parliament had to step down, and he saw the seat in Alberta cost over $2 million. So just throw out the cost factor. I don't know if that is the new cost. If it's not the cost, but that was the cost for that by-election. All right, time for a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Sandy about the issue we were discussing yesterday, veterinary care, pet insurance. We'll get some perspectives from Sandy on that in a moment here on Open Line. Welcome back. Tim Powers here today and tomorrow. One of the calls that got a lot of attention yesterday was the call we took from Jim about the challenge a friend of his had when trying to get some vet care. If you don't remember the call, Jim had said a friend of his had brought a dog in, a leg was broken. The person who brought the dog in only had $1,500 on him, according to Jim. It was going to cost $2,000 to do the work. The vet wouldn't take or whomever at the vet clinic wouldn't take the dog until they got the $2,000. Eventually they borrowed another $500. We were able to get the $2,000. The dog's legs were fixed, but compassion didn't lead. Cost did, at least according to Jim's perspective. Somebody who was very taken by that call and wanted to offer their opinion was Sandy. Sandy's on the line now. Sandy, your thoughts on that and just the general state of care versus compassion when it comes to animal welfare in Newfoundland and the way some are experiencing a lack of care when they first encounter veterinary clinics.
Jim, thank you. I think the biggest thing is right now is everybody is living within their means or beyond their means sometimes. I think with our economy today, everybody is feeling it. But I think what hurts most is what some people, especially non-pet lovers, don't understand is sometimes the pets are more than pets. They're emotional support. They've been with you through thick and thin. They're the nurse. They're the person they're the heartbeat that keeps one going. And I think what hurts most is when you're involved in an emergency and the first thing you hear is, how are you going to pay for this? Here's your cost. How are you going to pay for it? And that comes right down to the phone line of when you call in looking for emergency help. the first thing they're saying is, how are you paying for this? What credit card are you using? And if you don't do that, some people are forced to surrender their best friend. They are forced to do it because they can't pay at that moment. And they are in such
Sandy,
crisis.
can I just, I was just going to interrupt you for a second to say this. I mean, it's so ironic, right? Because when we look at our own human health care, one of the things that Canadians, Newfoundlanders, and Labradorians have long railed for is the maintenance of free public health care. Can you imagine if you go in and your husband or your kid or whatever is having a medical emergency and they say, oh, we need a credit card? You'd be apoplectic. So your point is so well taken. I mean, yes, veterinary medicine is not a public service. It's a private service. But approaches can be different. Sorry, you go ahead, Sandy.
No, you are right. And some people are rolling their eyes thinking, and I've seen it, like it's a pet. It's an animal. Well, I'm sorry, in many cases it's not. And it's not that blind eye syndrome. It's a creature that offers that support. And what hurts most, I think, is the fact that a lot of these veterinarians do care. And for some reason, whatever the driving force is, now it's all about the money. And some of these vets are in their hearts knowing this is happening and are against it themselves. And I think what I myself have had personal experience. I had a dog that went to a vet for a simple procedure. That procedure, whatever happened, the vet made an error, and my dog, the next phone call was, have your dog ever had a seizure? No, my dog didn't. I threw down the phone and took off. When I got there, my dog was literally on life support. I had to go across the city to try and get to the emergency vet. When we got there, he barely made it. The first thing that was thrown at me, it's going to cost you $12,500.
Oh, my goodness. Not
so.
Anything. Oh, my God. That's cruel in and of itself.
Yes, it wasn't, we're going to do everything we can, da-da-da-da-da. It was $12,500 first look. That's an approximate. So I'm like, I have pet insurance. Thank God, they said. That was the response. Thank God. So the vet insurance kicked in. I made my payment. I walked away. Now, mind you, the vet that did the error, the clinic did cough up and pay their end because it was a vet error. But can you imagine if you did not have pet insurance, number one, and it took time to get the money back from the other vet to prove wrongdoing, then having to cough up $12,500 at that moment or surrender your pet, that either A, the pet dies due to euthanasia, or number two, the pet is surrendered and then goes off to a shelter somewhere to be going to another home. Can you imagine the trauma on the pet and the owner?
Oh, I have two pets, so I'm just, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about living that myself and how terrible and awful that would be. Sandy, you made a good point that, look, there are a lot of good vets out there, but it's the system. But I come from the business world, and to me, the customer is always right, which means even in a case where you're there in difficult circumstances, you don't ask for the money first. You treat the person well with respect, and yes, you need to get payment afterwards, but you do get more flies with honey than you do anything else, and that is true in business, even in a most difficult business that involves the saving of a pet's life.
Absolutely. Another situation was there was a fire situation. 2 animals were involved in a serious fire. Right. Someone had called and said, can you call ahead to the vet to see if we can get these animals in? The first thing was an answering machine. The answering machine further alluded to make sure you have your credit card ready. You're going to need to pay for this. And it took ages to get a human being, let alone get beyond the cost, to deal with 2 animals that were in an emergency situation outside of their owners and their own control. And emergencies happen. They're like children. They can swallow things and choke. They can run into the road. Things happen. And this is when the crisis happens. And pet insurance does not always cover your vet visits, dentistries, medications. It's very selective.
like the
Very
insurance, like the insurance we buy for other products. Sandy, I got to leave it there. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I move on? I really appreciate this call today.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is keep in mind that if your pet is over 1 year old, the vet insurance rates do go up. So if you do want to add a pet that you've adopted from a shelter and it's older than a year old, those pet insurance rates do climb, which is very unfair as well.
Indeed it is. Sandy, thank you for making the time and giving us some more perspective on this issue. Good to talk to you today.
Thank you.
All right, that was Sandy talking about the call yesterday. We're going to take a break now, and then we're going to come back with Carrie and Barry. Didn't mean for that to be a rhyme, but it is. Carrie wants to give a counterpoint to Gus, and Barry Fordham wants to talk about give us an update on some issues related to the food fishery. All that coming up right after the break. Welcome back. We're going to go to Carrie on the line. Carrie, you wanted to share a perspective on floor crossing, respond to what Gus said. Go ahead.
Good morning. I did, and I want to say that Gus certainly made some great points and was so articulate in what he said, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate and say that I think our system is set up in general, specifically so that we are not electing people on party lines. And the whole idea, I think, behind Parliament and sort of it being a house of conscience is that you are electing your local member in good faith to represent you in the way that they see is best. And that, things change from the time when they are elected. The world isn't static. And so I think it is, if your member of the House crosses for whatever reason, it's I think a very difficult decision to do, and one that you're going to take a lot of flack for, but it's also possibly going to come back to haunt you in the next election. But it is within the framework of how our whole system is set up to allow, you're basically trusting the person that you have elected and voted for to represent you in the way they see best. And if things have changed, if they've lost confidence in their party leader, or if circumstances have changed that they feel that they need to align, with the government or step away from the government, side as well, that is, I think that's within their right to do. And I think it's actually a very brave thing to do. And, I look at our neighbors to the south and think, boy, if some folks in Congress had just crossed the floor, maybe the world would not be as scary a place as it is right now.
There's one point there's a lot of good points here. The one I want to pick up is this, and this is the debate I think you've really nailed, is who are you electing? And some people will say, as Gus did, Joe ran for the Conservatives and I was voting Conservative, Joe was wearing the jerseys. Others will say, particularly if you're in a place like Mount Pearl, where we have a living example with Paul Lane, Paul wore a blue jersey, Paul wore a red jersey, and now he's wearing a ref's jersey, and we elected Paul. And they could say that to Eddie Joyce as well. So I think that is the nub of the debate, right? Who are you feeling you elect? And sometimes people do feel they're electing the person because they're part of a team. Other times they're electing the person because they like their judgment. So it gets to be a tough one. Where does cost factor for you? Because I didn't get a chance to talk to Gus about this, but by-elections aren't cheap, right?
They're not cheap. And it's destabilizing also, which is, I think a bigger factor these days is that it's a distraction and it is taking resources away. But the average, I believe the average by-election the cost is pegged at between $1 million and $1.5 million. I think Poilievre's recent by-election was a little bit more, but the cost is a factor. That money could definitely be going better places, but it's also just distracting and taking away from resources and people's focus that could be better used solving real problems.
Yeah, and ultimately, I'll just leave it there, and I appreciate your call, and I appreciate Gus, is ultimately we do get a chance as the electorate, if the person reoffers, to decide whether we like their floor crossing or not. Use Marilyn Gladue. If Marilyn Gladue decides she's going to run under a Liberal banner whenever the next election comes, people get to decide if they liked what she did, if they're still angry at what she did. So there is an accountability mechanism. It sometimes just doesn't happen as fast as people would like. Appreciate the call, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, that was Carrie again. I know this subject gets people talking, so come on, as Carrie and Gus have, and give us your perspective on it all. I would just say before I go to Barry that there's a long history of this. Doesn't make it right or wrong, but I just gave you two examples. Pauling did cross the floor and then eventually sat as an independent, and to his credit, got elected as an independent. Eddie Joyce never crossed the floor, but he left the Liberal Party, sat as an independent, and both Paul and Eddie, I believe, have been re-elected numerous times as independents, and I think it speaks, at least in their cases, in their ridings, to the appeal they have for their community. So that's an argument for, personality over party and character commitment over party. Tom Osborne, look at Tom's character. Tom was in PCs, was in the Liberal government, and then just recently won federally. So he's put himself out to the electorate a number of times after he's made decisions to move from one party to another. Just did it once, but he moved to a different branch of the party, and people have made that decision. John Crosby, as I talked about, others have tried and not succeeded. But you do get to make a call at a certain point on all of that. Okay, let's talk to Barry Fordham. Barry is with the Food Fishery Fighters. I've talked to Barry before. You had a meeting with the federal government. What are you hearing from people?
Yes, good morning, Tim. Thank you for taking my call. Well, we have formed the Food Fishery Fighters to try to get a better system for ourselves for the food fishery, as you said, and I'm also the chair of the Food Fishery Fighters Committee on behalf of that. What we're looking for, Tim, is to extend the season from Canada Day weekend to Thanksgiving Day weekend, 7 days a week. We want to increase the daily bag limit from 5 fish to 10 fish. The reason for both those now, Tim, are that the weather, opportunity, and the food insecurity crisis. And I call it a crisis, is what we're in now. And so by increasing the bag limit, it also allows us then to be able to spread the wealth, be able to donate the fish around a bit more to the seniors, to our family, instead of just having the 5 fish. We're based both that on that if the commercial fishery.
Go ahead. Make sure that dog gets attention there, Barry. Look after that dog there. I heard him barking. Go ahead.
He's a sweetheart. Sorry, Ken. So we want that to increase because of the food security crisis that we're in, and as well as give us more opportunity to be able to get out to get that fish. If the commercial sector can receive an extra 20,000 metric tons last year, the foreign fishery received an extra 2,000 metric tons as a result of that, and the tour boat operators received an allocation as well. And if our asking for an extra 5 fish for a total of 10 fish per day is going to hurt the cod stock, then the moratorium should never have been opened. Mm-hmm. Now we report that the cod stocks are in healthy shape, and the fish processing plant out in Arnold's Cove is requesting additional supply.
Yeah, so certainly. I was just going to. Sorry, Barry. Just going to interrupt for a moment. Just on the. Last week I spoke to Alberta Wareham about this. Of course, the DFO scientists say we're in the healthy zone. There's some conservationists who say we still need to be careful. As it relates to what you're talking about, the food fishery, the daily limit. Roughly, what would be the additional take of fish if it went up to 10 and it was extended for what sounds like 3.5 months? What would be the impact on the stock?
Well, I don't think it will be that big of an impact. And Tim, people are not going to. It's impossible to go out 7 days a week, catch 10 fish every day. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because of the weather, and Tim, after the capelin leaves our shores, the fish move off, and so then the fishing is not all that great anyway. So the price of gas and everything else goes along with it. What we're asking for is to give us the opportunity to get out and get our codfish. And again, if it's our hook and line is going to damage any damage to the cod stocks, then again I will reiterate the moratorium should never have been lifted. Also, Tim, what we want to get rid of this ignorant term, if I should be so bold, ignorant term of referring to our fishery as a recreational fishery. It is not a recreational fishery. It is a food fishery. It is part, very importantly, of our culture, and our culture is very important. Well, we want DFO to finally make the announcement in a more timely fashion. Mm-hmm. As it is, Tim, if you're aware, the announcement is not made until the week or 2 weeks before the season, and that's simply not fair, and it's simply not acceptable anymore. With that, then they could put that on their 3 to 5 year management plan, as they have in the Maritimes, where it's always it's early. The disabled fisher program, we want to see that brought into the 21st century. And that allows people to get their fish as well. So
Barry, how are the feds?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So you're making a good argument to me. What are people like in the DFO world saying? What is Joanne Thompson saying? What is the sense you're getting about the receptivity of this?
Well, to be quite honest, and I'm honest anyway, just term, sorry. Up until last week, there was no response. All we got was political lip service from DFO, from the minister herself, from provincial government, from the federal MPs. There was no support. We're out there hanging in the wind, and it's not like the politicians don't know what we're doing. I mean, we're all over the media, and to date we haven't received any such assistance from the government, and that's strange too.
Yeah, that is. Hopefully they're thinking about it, and hopefully they're going to give some guidance. All right, Barry. Before I go to news, anything else you would like to add? Thank you for giving us your update. But is there anything you want to add that I haven't asked you about?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, so we understand, though, that for the numbers of people, Tim, we're talking about over 20,000 people. That includes our group, our petitions, and is, of course, the online survey, which DFO announced was the most ever people participated in a survey. And the majority of those people are from Newfoundland and Labrador. So we have to sit on the wharf from Tuesday to Friday, twiddling our thumbs, while people from all over the world can come here to Newfoundland and Labrador and catch our codfish. That's simply not acceptable anymore, and we're not going to take it.
All right. Well, Barry, I appreciate your perspective, and that's certainly a perspective that others share. Thank you for joining us today.
Tim, if I could, we're not asking. Our requests are not unreasonable. We're not asking for the sky. We're asking what's right, and what's right is for the government to respect our culture and our traditions.
Okay. All good, Barry. And I hear you on culture and traditions. That's always been an important and vital argument that we need to listen to when it comes to our fishery. Thanks for talking to us today.
Thank you, Tim. It's always been a pleasure.
All right. That's Barry Fordham. Time for news. Back with more of your calls after that. Welcome back. Well, last night, Sarah Smelly released a story from the Canadian Press. Sarah is that looked at donations made in the Newfoundland and Labrador election. And as is often the case with when this stuff becomes public, there people that have very distinct opinions based on the donors and what their intentions were. There are some big figures there. Why are there big figures? Because there aren't limits in Newfoundland and Labrador on how much an individual or a corporation can donate. So that is something that I think we should look at. But the donation that seemed to get, or the series of donations that seemed to get the most attention last night, was the donations made by Danny Williams and his corporation towards the Newfoundland Tories. I saw one figure that had just a little over 50,000 from Mr. Williams and or his corporations. Again, Mr. Williams, as I said, did not hide his frustration with the deal that the Newfoundland Liberal government had signed around Churchill Falls with Quebec. That deal hangs in abeyance at the moment. To talk about this and his reaction to Mr. Williams' donation, we're joined by Ben Oates, the chair of Force Newfoundland. You'll remember I've talked to Ben before. Ben, through Force Newfoundland, has been advocating that, look, we need to look to the future. We're young people, and the Churchill Falls deal, as he saw it and was on the table, was a good one. Ben, I saw some of your social media commentary. You were not happy with former Premier Williams' donation. Give us your perspective.
Thanks for the time, Tim, and that would be an understatement. And I'm just going to a discussion about political donations is something that I think we need to have, and we can have it at a different time. But I'm here today to talk about what this deal means to my generation, to the next generation, to the generation after that. I want to put that in context for people right now, and I want to put in context why this is such a frustrating betrayal of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians by a former premier. So what former Premier Williams did is played on people's suspicions and fears and anxieties over making another hydro deal with Quebec, because we have been traumatized so deeply in the past by the 1969 agreement and by Danny Williams' boondoggle with Muskrat Falls, that people were suspicious of it. Now, the government of the day was fully aware of these suspicions and did everything in its power. Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro did everything in its power. The government did everything in its power. Everybody did everything that they possibly could to put as much sunshine on this deal as they could. The MOU, its entire text, was put before the House of Assembly. It was put before the public. You could go read it. Yes, it was meaty. Yes, it was technical. Yes, it was boring at times, but it was all out there. They tried to do everything right. Everything right. Try to put as much sunshine in this deal as possible. But what does it take? It takes one fat cat with deep pockets and an ego, because he wasn't the one who signed the deal. He's giving away $243 billion of not his money, not your money, Tim, my money, my kids' money, my grandchildren's money. And the $243 billion figure comes from the fact that we're going to lose $225 billion from the MOU as it's written right now, and the $18 billion we've spent on Muskrat Falls, which, by the way, when the Muskrat Falls contract was signed, I was 10, so I didn't have a chance to vote against it. I wish I did. Mm-hmm. Let me continue on.
No, I just want to let you catch your breath there for a second. I would ask you this, and I have a lot of respect for you, but the challenge question I will ask you: Are you not vesting too much in what the impact of former Premier Williams was? And I ask this, Ben, knowing that, look, there were supporters of the deal who were making the arguments for the deal. The former Liberal government tried to make the arguments for the deal. Is there an element of this, as frustrating as it may be to you and to others and to me even, that the public just didn't want to go there, or the argument wasn't made well enough?
I think it's a combination of both. What I think you have is if we were having discussion based on the merits or the facts of the deal, that will be fine. The fact of the matter is that former Premier Williams spent $60,000 contributing towards the PCs, and who knows how much on his own propaganda campaign, trying to rally against it based on falsitudes, just falseness, right? Stop the Churchill giveaway. Nobody has been able to give a solid answer as to why why it's a giveaway, except for the fact that Danny Williams does not like Quebec, period. We've tried our best. We've tried our good faith best to go before the general public, to go before people, to go before the government. We had a great, I thought it was productive meeting with Lloyd Parrott over this, right? Done our best to sit there and try to talk about the facts of this deal. The fact of the matter is that you have Danny Williams coming out and just saying, oh, I don't like this deal. It's a steal. It's a giveaway. When there are immutable facts showing that this is not the case. So it doesn't matter how right you try to do it. It does not matter how factual you are. It does not matter how many professionals, how many experts, how many people who've spent their careers doing it. You can have Danny Williams get up and say, oh, it's a bad deal, pump a bunch of money into a propaganda campaign, play on people's fears, and take hundreds of billions of dollars away from the people of this province. So yes, there's absolutely a time and place to discuss the merits, and yes, there's absolutely some things that could be tweaked, sure, right? The thing is that the MOU is a sketch on a napkin, right? It's a sketch on a napkin that will lead to a final negotiation. Now, if the PC government has different public policy priorities, aka if they wanted more power, if they wanted a greater equity share, sure, fine. Those are reasonable things that you could have debated on. The fact of the matter is, and I was trying to wrap my head around why they've done what they've done so far, why it doesn't make sense. The fact of the matter is, they are not looking to do that. They just simply do not want to make a deal with Quebec because Danny Williams is calling the shots and bankrolling them, and nobody in that bloody caucus has enough of a spine to stand up and say no more. I know some people in that caucus, I've had them reach out to me, whether it be staff or caucus members or cabinet ministers, reach out to me personally and say that they support the deal, they want the revenue, they know we need the revenue, they don't support a referendum, but yet, because Tony Wakeham doesn't have the gall to stand up to Danny Williams, because he has no spine, we are sitting here and we're at the whims, again, of the merchant class who are spinning their own lives for their own benefits, and I'm sick and tired of it. How much longer are we going to be held back by people's egos? It's frustrating.
No, there is no doubt egos have played a huge role in Newfoundland and Labrador politics. I don't dispute that. I hear your passion. Excuse me. I get you're angry. I would just say this, and again, I say it to add a bit of context. You know, you can go back to just about every premier, and somebody else has always allegedly been pulling the strings. Brian Tobin was pulling the strings for Dwight Ball. You know, I've heard these arguments before. I don't believe them to be right, but I understand where they come from. My question for you now, hearing your frustration, is this deal all but dead? I mean, Legault is about to leave. Premier Fury is gone. If this deal is dead, where do you think we should be focusing our energies, or should Wakeham bring forward the referendum and deal with the next Quebec government?
I think this deal, as it is, stands right now. I think any deal is dead. Danny Williams ran. I have before me right now. This is not a new thing, Gull Islandism. We've been trying to work it since the late 70s in the Frank Morris government, right? So Danny Williams ran in 2004, 2006, whenever it was. I was 2 or 3. Ran on a platform of no collaboration with Quebec when Roger Grimes had a deal on it, right? Deal made. So this guy is clearly not interested. He has a personal vendetta against Quebec, right? So 1. For 2, in terms of this deal, this is the third time we've tried to make a deal with Quebec, and it'll be the third time that the Newfoundland government has walked away from Quebec because we just had a hissy fit, more or less, right? So I don't see from a business sense why Hydro-Quebec would have any interest in coming back to us again when they have other options. They have capital, they have a border with Ontario, who they could buy nuclear off of. They're in talks with Nova Scotia, et cetera, right? So if we're not seen to be a reliable partner, this deal is not coming back. And Gull Island is never being developed, period, unless it's with a major base grid customer like Hydro-Quebec. Sure. You can talk about data centers. That's all. No comment on that. I have nothing nice to say about that. Could we?
I got 1 minute, buddy. 1 minute, because I got to get to break. I'll give you 1 minute. Go ahead.
Sure. Could we see so the PCs come up with some sort of agreements to do Churchill River expansions to support mining? Yes, sure, no problem. That will be grand. But, and I'd support that. And if I actually thought that they were just trying to get, due diligence and do this deal properly, then we had the meeting with Mr. Parrott, then I'd say as much. But we've tried to give as much good faith as we can. It's clear that they're not interested in going in good faith with us. So there we go. So I think the deal effectively is dead. And it's dead because we had a few very vocal people play on people's fears and emotions, drummed up a bunch of nonsense, and my generation is going to pay the cost. My kids are I'm going to pay for the debt that Danny settles with. My kids are going to pay for it. My grandkids are going to pay for it. My great-grandkids are going to pay for it. When I'm not saying that the MOU would have been the silver bullet, but it would have helped.
Okay. I would say this to you, though, your passion, your energy, your love of Newfoundland and Labrador as you continue to play in leadership spaces and places, that gives me hope as somebody who's slightly older than you. So you keep at it. I know it's a day of disappointment as you saw those donation numbers, but always enjoy our chats, Ben. Thanks for making time for us today.
Thank you, Tim, and I apologize if I got a bit heated. I'm going to go take a walk with the dog.
It's open line. That's what it's for, buddy. All right, that was Ben Oates, Chair of Force Newfoundland. We're going to take a break. We've got Jillian after that, and we're going to listen to a conversation I had with General David Fraser, on the ceasefire or whatever we have. Back with that in a moment here on Open Line. Welcome back. I think we're going to talk about hiatal hernia. I didn't expect that this morning, but that's what Open Line is for. Jillian, tell us about this issue from your perspective and the inability to get it done in the province. Do I have that right?
Half of it is, yes.
Okay, well, listen, 50 was the grade I got in school, Jillian. So if I got 50%, I'm happy today. Keep going.
I know. Yeah, right on, Tim. Perfect. I'm from Goose Bay, and this acute hiatus hernia with Barrett's esophagus, well, it's now a sliding hernia, which has become very dangerous.
Okay.
There's no more protection in the esophagus to stop the intestine and stomach sac from coming up and choking a person, like myself, with this.
Okay.
And you develop over time, if untreated or corrected, you can develop Barrett's esophagus condition, which in time, if left untreated with correction or surgery, it can become cancerous.
Really? I didn't realize that. Okay.
Just recently myself, only 2 months ago, because I have been declining health-wise, like losing a lot of blood. I had to go for another scope. I found out about my hiatus hernia in 2023 and was declining in different symptoms-wise since then. But recently, the one that I had done, the scope I had done, showed my worst fear, cellular dysplasia.
Oh, my goodness.
And that I have this condition now where there's no stopping. I could choke, I could perforate, die from this sliding hernia. But I was living with this and searching for the surgeon to correct me. I found one. The one who diagnosed me was removed from here. I had no idea. I thought I was going for a pre-op in 2023 because he told me that, I can totally fix this. I've done this 10,000 times. He said, no problem. He said, don't worry, okay? He said, it sounds scary, but don't worry. And I said, no, I won't. I trust you. And so that was fine. And months went by, and I called back. He was gone. And I couldn't find anyone to do or even talk about this with me. They said, no, it's inoperable here. I said, no, it isn't. I was already told it was. And I said, I was already told it's being done in Labrador City. And I said, I already know that is the instrument. It's called a bougie that they needed.
Yeah, I've heard of this bougie. Okay.
They don't have it here. And so that was the hookup with me, I guess, with perhaps I'm just assuming why he didn't say we'll do it in Goose Bay or whatever. But so anyway, I'm going to fast forward right up into where I haven't had nothing done since 2023, instead deteriorating. Now I'm losing blood. Now I have cellular dysplasia. Now I have to go for another endoscope to rule out cancer. But in the meanwhile, I looked around to find out about this acute hiatus hernia, and they said that it was inoperable here, and based on not enough medical supplies. This is when I dug really deep. And because they tried telling me I could live with it, certain people after the original surgeon I seen, and these were not surgeons, so I was respectfully listening to them, but all the while knowing that they're not the appropriate specialist. So then my daughter, I'm going to bring her into this because this is bad. She is moved away a couple years ago to St. John's. She was treated here for years for GERD, and I always suspected it was something worse, but I was trusting, and she was trusting as well. And she's a healthy young girl. Like, she doesn't smoke, she never drank, never once, and she eats good, but she had a job lifting very heavy things all her life. All her jobs were like laboring jobs. She's a tiny person, so when she moved to St. John's, I said, you need to get a doctor and get some checkups, like just, to make sure everything's fine with this GERD and that. So she started seeing the doctors. They discovered a couple things. They not in that area, but they dealt with it, corrected it, so she was happy, but all the while deteriorating. Couldn't lift, having severe pain in these areas that I have. So they said, okay, you know what? We're going to do a scope for you. So came back. She called me yesterday. This was the day of the scope, and she was crying, and I said, what's wrong? She said, it's not good. It's not good at all, Mom. And I said, what? She said, I have what you have. And I said, no. I said, no,
That is bizarre. That is bizarre.
And then she said, Mom, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? She said, I got to go to a speech pathology because she chokes. See, she's been choking.
She chokes as a consequence of it. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's choking and then waking up in the night choking and choking on her food as she tries to eat. She's on a liquid diet. She's been on this for 3 months. So anyway, it's still choking. So she told me, she said, Mom, she said, it's not only the hiatus hernia, it's a sliding one as well. My thing is totally damaged. The esophagus, she said, I have Barrett's esophagus. She said, but there's an abnormality. She said, there's a growth. And I said, oh, my God. And she said, Mom, she said, they don't operate on that here. And I said, listen, Kenzie, you know as well as I do, I'll do whatever I can for you, and we'll investigate whatever we can. And, in fact, I had 3 people call me and told me they had the procedure done. They had that it is doable here. Yep,
so it is doable. Okay.
Done. And I said, why did you have it done and I couldn't have it done? And she said, well, I won't say her answer because I just know it's not right for me to say her answer. I don't want to do that. I didn't ask her permission if I could say it. So anyway, but I know of people getting corrected because this can kill you. This is a thing that can perforate or also turn to cancer. If it doesn't perforate, it can turn to cancer over time because of the severe damage, the destruction to the esophagus, and this sliding hernia coming in and out. This acid where eventually turns to can go cancerous in 8 cases out of 10.
Jillian, that's 2 suggestions for you because we gotta go here, and thank you for sharing the story. You're in Happy Valley or you're in Goose. Call your MHA, Keith Russell.
I'm definitely. I got to do something about this because I'm
and
your. My daughter.
Sorry, I was also going to say, Jillian, Leila Evans is from Labrador. Give her a call, too. She's the health minister. They'll hear this today.
The last name?
Evans, Leila Evans. You can. I don't have the phone number, but Dave maybe can give it to you. Dave will give it to you when you get off air. But she's the Minister of Health. She's from Labrador. She might have some empathy and might be able to help you out. But good luck. Got to leave it there. Stay on the line. Dave will give you those numbers. Appreciate you calling us and sharing the story.
I appreciate you putting that time in for me, a fellow guy from Goose Bay. I remember you decades ago when you lived in Goose. God bless you and your family, and take good care.
All right, Jillian, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Hey, we're here to help if we can. Time for a break. When we come back, more of your calls. Welcome back. Delighted to welcome our next guest. That's Mike Murray. You know Mike. He is a former Crown prosecutor. Mike sent us a very thoughtful message, I thought, yesterday about our discussion on trap houses. Mike, where do you want to go with this? Because I'm sure you've talked and dealt with this in numerous capacities in your past life as a Crown prosecutor. I'll just let you start off.
All right. I guess one of the things is that in many respects I really haven't dealt with it much because it's more of a civil issue than a criminal issue. That's why I sent that message yesterday. You know, I got a lot of time for Ron Ellsworth. I don't always agree with the deputy mayor on policy issues, but once or twice over the years I've had to reach out, and he's always been very responsive. He's the best kind as far as I can see. But the big issue with the trap houses, I mean, he was suggesting people call the police. But, I mean, the police can arrest people, but they can't evict people, all right? You know, people being told to call the police when they call the city about housing or call Newfoundland and Labrador housing is really, I think, kind of a misdirection. I mean, let's take some of the common issues that people complain about. Okay, there's 2 people on the lease. There appear to be 10 people living there. I mean, what can the police do about that? Nothing. There's comings and goings and commotion all the time, noise, swearing, fighting all day and night. What can the police do about that? People appear to be doing drugs in and around the property. I mean, what can the police do about that? Garbage outside, broken windows. I mean, what are the police going to do about that? Nothing. Even if the police have a warrant to go into the house and arrest one person, that still leaves 5 people in the house. I mean, what benefit of that is that to the neighbors? And even the person they arrested, once they finish up in court, they can move right back in. You know,
Mike,
I mean,
can just on that, because I think there are many people, and I am one of them. When can law enforcement actually seize and control a property? Can that only happen after a conviction, or how does? Because we see the news conferences where people, you know, seize drugs and they seize guns. So maybe people think they can seize property, but how does that work?
They can't.
Okay.
I mean, privately owned property can sometimes be seized as proceeds of crime. But, I mean, they can't terminate a lease. You know, only the landlord can terminate a lease, like Newfoundland and Labrador Housing or the city and the housing that they have. I mean, you know, people call housing, either one, and I mean, they don't respond to complaints, they don't come out to talk to people, they don't do inspections, they don't do evictions. I mean, the responsibility here clearly lies with the landlords. I mean, people have a right to peaceful enjoyment of their property, and sometimes people have been living next to these trap houses or crack houses, whatever you want to call them, for years and years with multiple complaints and no action being taken at all.
So what should there be some legislative change here?
I think the legislative framework is already there. It's just a question of these housing authorities being either being insufficiently resourced or insufficiently motivated to take action. I mean, that's the real issue. The buck stops 100% there. The ability of the police to act is very limited. They can deal with specific, incidents of illegal behavior. But like I said, they take somebody away, and the person appears in court, and if they get released a week later, I mean, they're moving right back in there. I mean, the police can't do anything about that.
One of the suggestions that was made yesterday, and I don't think it would work, but you're the lawyer, I'm not, so I will ask you, is because privacy comes into play here. I can't remember which caller had suggested it, but they said, look, Newfoundland and Labrador Housing should do a thorough background check on the individuals they rent the properties to, and if that person has a past criminal record or is subject to criminal charges, that should impede them from getting property. I would guess that is a charter violation on numerous levels?
I don't know if it is. I mean, privacy law is not my real area of expertise, but I mean, ordinary landlords do that. Nobody's renting out their basement apartment without a certificate of conduct.
So that could be something that could be looked at if it's not there already.
Absolutely, and it may even be there already.
Interesting. Just on the, again, because you worked in the broader system, how, from your perspective, because I keep hearing this, how bad is the drug dealing situation in the province, drugs and weapons and in the city? What is your take on that?
I think that it really, really has increased. Like, I heard you mention shoplifting this morning. Mm-hmm. So when I started, shoplifting was somebody stealing something, let's say a power drill or a steak or some jewelry that they wanted for themselves. I mean, those cases don't even come to court anymore. The stores don't even bother calling the cops. If there's one person stealing one thing, they just give them a petty trespass act notice and tell them not to come back. I mean, what you're dealing with now, if you go to a grocery store, if you're security at a grocery store, is some drug addict filling up a whole cart with $500 or $1,000 worth of meat and ramming it out the door, and it's being sold on the black market afterwards. The same thing happens in liquor stores. The same thing happens. People are going in and stealing power tools left, right, and center. I mean, if you go into to Walmart or Shoppers, even the electric toothbrushes are locked up now.
Yeah.
It's everything. I mean, there's if you're a drug addict, you need drugs every day. And
you got to feed that.
And these people, I mean, this is what a drug problem is like. These people, they know they're on video. So let's say you go into Canadian Tire and grab a couple of power drills and run out the door. You know you're on video. You know the cops are going to get you. But you also know how the system works. If you're already gone, so if you can get out the door, you're good. If you're already gone, they'll call the police, and that day or the next day, they'll come by and pick up the video. If the officer doesn't know who you are, and often they will, but sometimes they don't, then they'll put it up on the police internal system, and and in a day or two, another officer will come forward. That's so and so, and I think he was last living on Cashin Avenue, let's say. So then the officer who's responsible for the file has to track you down, because no matter what your bail papers say, you're probably living somewhere else. And then, so they got to find you in among everything else they got to do. And, maybe in a month's time you'll be picked up for theft and breach of release order and brought to court. So you're talking, you got a month. And if you're a drug addict who needs drugs every day, a month might as well be 100 years. They know that stuff going in, but they don't care because it's not today. If they can get out the door, it's not today. And, there's an awful lot, like people talk about crime rates being up or down. And I think they're up in this province, down in some other provinces. But you got to remember that the amount of unreported sort of civil disorder and petty crime is like exponential. Like, last week, just as I was going to bed, I live downtown. I looked out the front door, and there was some guy over behind my neighbor's Jeep. And I just said, "Hey, buddy." And after a couple of seconds, he just walked out and said, "Sorry, sir," and walked down the street. I mean, 10 years ago, I would have called the cops. But realistically, what's he going to be charged with? Attempted theft. If you go out in the morning to get in your car and it's been gone through, or someone's been in your shed, I mean, people just don't bother to call the police anymore because they don't have any reasonable expectation, given police resources and the justice system, that anything is going to happen. So there's an awful lot of low-level disorder and graffiti, and you can't walk around downtown without seeing syringes or people on the nod out there, sitting on benches. That there's a real feeling, I think, of disorder in the community.
Okay. Yeah, it's listen, sitting in here and talking to people, following the news and this show and my show, I get that, and I've never really felt that in Newfoundland before now to the degree. Anyway, I got to leave it there, Mike. I got to get to break. Thank you for your contribution. Good to talk to you.
No problem. Talk to you later.
All right. That is Mike Murray, former Crown prosecutor. Catherine will hold and come right back to you after the break. Welcome back. Tim Powers here. Going to go to Catherine. Catherine, you've got a bouquet you'd like to throw. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Tim. Nice to hear you, and also when you appear on the Power and Politics program.
Thank you.
I'm so looking forward to when Dave Cochran gets back. The program
next
is not
week.
the same without him.
Back next week, apparently.
Oh, great. Anyway, I just wanted to throw a bouquet out to your mother. And her act of kindness to people she didn't even know. And that was my sister and her husband was visiting from out of the province, and that was in the summer. And during that time, there was an accident, and of course, her husband ended up being severely injured. He went through surgery, then rehab at the Miller Center. So we were still going to the rehab, the Miller Center, in the fall. Mm-hmm. And every day we passed this beautiful garden and house. and my sister, being a gardener herself, she'd say, someday we got to stop and go in there. I said, you can't go in there because it'd be trespassing. You got to be careful. So I broke down one day and I said, go in, knock on the door, and ask her if you can go into her garden, and that's how it started. So she went to the door, disappeared, and I waited and waited. I finally got the courage to go in myself. And of course, they were sitting down having a grand chat about flowers and the garden. And so anyway, and then I saw this picture there, and I said, "How do you know him?" And she said, "He's my son." She said, "Do you know him?" I said, "Well, no." I said, "Not really. Just from." So that's how the conversation came.
Oh my goodness!
But it was and then she ended up giving my sister some tea buns to take down,
of course,
to her husband. And but Tim, you would not believe how much that did for my sister. She'd had such a devastating time and what had happened. And then to meet someone that was so kind, and like your mother will never know how much she did for her that day. So I thought I must call and send out this bouquet to her, because what a beautiful woman, and I want to thank her so much. And if there's anything I can do, I certainly will.
Well, Catherine, that is really kind of you. Now you're making it hard for me to give her a hard time today, because I'm hearing all of these lovely things about her. But my teasing of my mom aside, she is an exceptionally kind woman, and I am not surprised your sister left with cookies and tea buns, and she welcomed you all. All I want to know, Catherine, is did she swear or not swear? Because she can have a salty tongue from time to time.
No, she was on good behavior.
Okay. All right. I won't have to mix with her medication today. All right. Good. I'm teasing, of course.
But it was a lovely visit, but it did so much for my sister and the rest of her visits going down to the Miller Center, But I just had to tell you that, and how much it meant, and how much an act of kindness does make to people.
Yeah, that's the big message there, right? If you can be kind, and I've been lucky to have a mother and a father who have always tried to lead with kindness, and my sister and I try to do the best we can. Catherine, that is so sweet. You've made my day. You'll certainly make my mom's day if she's listening now, if she's not tootling around. Well, she can't really garden now because of the weather, but I will make sure she knows. Thank you, and pop by anytime, and she will welcome that.
Yeah, and my sister did. I don't know if she's done it already, but she was going to take pictures of her garden and send to her. But when they returned home, after a couple of weeks, her husband had to be readmitted with another severe surgery. So they've been having a very rough time of getting back on their feet. But I'm sure she will hear from her. And anyway, thanks so much.
Well, send your sister and your brother-in-law love, and we're thinking of them all. Thank you for being so kind yourself and doing that. Really great to chat with you today, Catherine. Bye. Okay, that was Catherine. That's so nice. Mom, if you're thinking, you got a thank you letter if you're listening. I know you're always thinking. If you're listening, you got to write a letter there. What a wonderful thing. And that's why we love Open Line. I really deeply appreciate that, Catherine. I love my mom dearly, and I love the example she set for us and so many with her kindness. Walter Harding knows my mother, but he's not. You better not throw her a bouquet, Walter. That'll be too much for me to handle today. You want to talk about street parking and spring cleanup. Tell me all about that.
Yes, just 60 seconds, Tim. Nice to talk to you, my friend. Here in the city of St. John's, our on-street parking ban has been extended to the 18th of April. It was supposed to come off on the 11th. And I know, I've been listening to Open Line for 40 plus years. I know that back in the day, anything that was going on with the city, there would always be, a lot of times a phone call made to the Open Line host so that, many people would get the information. They'd be, the social media now, of course, I think there's a bit too much reliance on that because, it's put out and then you just assume that everybody knows about it. This can be an expensive situation because it's $75 if you do get a ticket for parking on the street now until the 18th of April, not the 11th. So there's no reason given.
18th of April. Okay.
Yeah. So no reason given by the city. Just it's been extended. Our neighboring municipalities, theirs is off, and of course it might come back on if we have a storm. But there's nothing really in the forecast to talk about. But just wanted to make sure folks knew. Your show is very popular, of course. So if I can reach 10 or 20 or 30 people, save them $75 as well worth the phone call. So April 18th. Don't park outside the downtown. You're going to get a ticket if you do.
All right, that's good to know because it's tough out there, Walter. As you know, if people can save a few bucks and don't get a ticket, that'll make a big difference. And I know you're a big man on cleanups. What do you got for us in spring cleanups?
Well, just volunteer week this year is April 19th to the 25th. And we're going to be doing what we've always done, knock on wood, which is, and this will go on all spring and all summer. We just try to do our best to. We have a beautiful city underneath all the litter, and as the snow starts to melt,
and all the snow, Walter, and all the snow.
Yeah, some people, some folks may not like volunteer week. What can I do to volunteer? I can't really do much to volunteer. Just by holding the door open for someone or helping them get something off the shelf at the grocery store. Just lending an ear if somebody wants to have a chat. That is a way to volunteer what is the most precious gift any of us have in this world, and that's our time. So if you share your precious time with folks, it'll mean the world to them. And, a minute here, a minute there, all the sum of many small efforts will show a positive result. So you can volunteer in your own little way. You don't need to be a part of a massive organization or anything. Just do your own little thing and know that you have touched someone in a positive way that they'll likely never forget.
Yeah, so well said, right? It's the lesson from the last call. Be kind, do little things. They all add up, and you're somebody who does a lot of that. Walter, appreciate the time. Thank you, my friend.
All the best to you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that is Walter Harding. Does a lot in our community, as we all know. All right, shortly going to take a break. We've got a couple of calls coming up, including Merv Wiseman. Want to see how Merv is doing. And we'll take more of your calls after the news break. And I know Sarah Strickland is happy today before we go to news because the Jays actually won last night, 4-3. The losing streak is over. Sarah's probably on cloud nine. Okay, time for the news. Back with your calls shortly.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Tim Powers here today. Well, earlier in the show, we talked to Barry Fordham from Food Fisher Fighters. I love the alliteration there. We now have our friend Merv Wiseman. Merv, how you doing, by the way? I heard you weren't feeling the best. You're doing okay?
Yes, I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. And, I've been living the adventure, so to speak, trying to stay alive. Quite frankly, I had a lung transplant. I spent just about a year in Toronto at the Toronto General Hospital, and thanks to these wonderful people, the levels of expertise, and thanks to donors and all the people and the outreach and so on, I've managed to find my way to where I am today, and I'm doing very well, Tim. I must say, I consider myself very lucky at this point. Of course, the big enemy with this kind of a transplant is organ rejection, and I've been doing very well so far, so good. I'm knocking on wood all the way and taking every second of life I can get and enjoying it.
Well, that's so good to hear. You sound strong, so that is good. And and your passion for the water, the fish, and keeping people safe, and the culture of our province is still strong, obviously, which is good. That helps with healing. So, what's on your mind today, Merv?
Well, yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I must say, of all the things that I've missed over the years, the advocacy part and certainly the public affairs part, the engagement and so on. Open Line, my God, I really enjoy Open Line and all the hosts and what they have to say and the public and so on and so forth. So it didn't take a whole lot, when I was invited into the group that's now advocating collectively for the food fishery. And I just wanted to reinforce, what Barry had to say this morning and other committee members and so on, and it does bear repeating. I think there's a lot of the food fishery that's not, I don't fully understand in terms of the rationale that's being fired back at us as to why we can't get the kind of things to make this a smooth fishery and the kind of food fishery that is warranted for our people. For example, we're living in a country that's supposed to have some consistency from coast to coast to coast. And I'm seeing a huge discrepancy between the level of treatment that's being gotten in other parts of the country, British Columbia, for example, and Nova Scotia, just across the water there. And I for the life of me, can't understand why they can have a daily a food fishery, from the time it opens and no breaks in between. For just here, we have to deal with a weekend issue. So, we got issues of economics and how you go out there and purchase, the materials, the gas that you have to do to go out there. And the safety issues, especially the safety issues. So look, I'm a retired rescue coordinator, and I can tell you right now that I have engaged many times in search and rescue missions involving food fishery people, and a lot of it was driven by the fact that they've been pushing the limits to get out there because the next day, I'm sorry, it's going to be closed the rest of the week, and I have to go back to work. These kinds of things, and it just makes no sense. There's issues around conservation, and sure, we want to be part of the conservation regime that's there. But I think in large part, we as the public in Newfoundland and Labrador has left it to the politicians and the goodwill of politicians to go to look after our interests and fight for our rights if they have to fight for our rights. But that hasn't been happening. So now we have to form as a group, and I can tell you we are going to fight and fight back if we have to. We as a group support support the commercial fishery. We support, the larger scale fisheries and so on. But we also expect collaboration back and forth among groups, and that we would expect to get the same kind of respect from those organizations to say that we should get and we should be part of a fishery on a priority basis, given our background, given our culture, our heritage, and all the things that warrants why we should be treated a whole lot different than we are today. And if we have to use the political tool to do that, then we will certainly be doing that. So we'll certainly want to send that message out. I don't think that's all that ominous, and I think the expectation that we would do that should be there.
Can I just let me interrupt you for a second? One, it doesn't sound ominous. Two, I asked this of Barry, and I get that it's hard to get numbers on this. Any idea how many people tend to participate in the food fishery and what the take of stock is when all is said and done? Because I'm guessing you worked in that department. I worked in that department, fisheries and oceans and the like. I mean, they want to measure everything. The cultural argument is a very important one, and it certainly has weight in other places. But what do you know about the numbers, Merv? What is your take on that and how that is factoring in all of this?
Look, that's a good question. I know that's rhetorical to say that, but it's hard to say. No one really knows, and even the top bureaucrats in Ottawa really can't tell you. There's a lot of conjecture and a lot of speculation of how many people would be involved. Just because you have you're requesting, say, 10 fish as opposed to the 5 that's there now and have everyday fishing, does not translate into the idea that everybody that would want to go fishing during the season would be out there. So you can't do your math on the basis of that. There's no real management tools to understand that particular dynamic. It's not there. There's been I've heard 200 to 300 tons per year. I don't believe that. I just simply don't believe it. But nobody can put their finger, including the minister, cannot put their finger on the answer to that kind of a question. And certainly that is a part and parcel of where we would want to be. We would certainly want to be part of the management regime without getting too cumbersome. There was a point a few years ago, they said, let's have some tags and let's measure and count the number of tags at the end of the year. That didn't work because it was a logistical nightmare to do that. What other tools can be used? I'm certainly not sure, but from a speculative standpoint, when you look at natural predation, it's been said that the first week in January of each year would amount to about the amount of fish, codfish consumed by seals, which would equal the amount that's been taken by commercial fishery, including the larger corporate draggers and so on and so forth. So who knows? There's 8 to 9 million seals out there that's consuming every day, just as a small example. So you could come up with all kinds of scenarios, but until we get a proper measurement, that's an important question. It needs to be answered, but nobody can.
Okay. No, I give you another minute. I got to take another call. What else would you like to add? And thank you for giving me some direction on that.
Well, look, we just want to reach out, not just to our politicians, but we want to reach out to the general public too. I think the general public has been looking for some focus to this. You've heard all the opinions on your open line, and I suppose anywhere you bump into people who might want to bring up this subject, you see it there all the time. So we among all the rationale that we want to put forward and try to make our case and get the attention that we need to get, we want to act as a focus group so that we can balance all of the input and the consultations that's happening from groups like the FFAW, for example, in this province, and there are many other groups too, not just to point at the FFAW. So we want to leave with the message that, look, we're here, we hear you, people out there, and we want to get all the input we can get, and you will hear back, and we're going to be pushing this, and you're going to hear from us as a group collectively loud and clear. I guess that's my final message on that at the moment.
Okay. Well, I appreciate talking to you. I appreciate you giving us some more perspective. You keep staying well, and we'll keep on this issue. Thank you, Merv.
Thank you very much, Tim. Bye-bye.
All right, that is Merv Wiseman, also with the Fisher Food Group. We're going to take a break. Bill, you're up next when we come back. But before we go to break, I should say I just realized this. I should know this as somebody who follows history and studies history. Did you know today is the 109th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge? Wow, 109 years. Pretty incredible. A lot of sacrifice on that day, as there was on the day of Beaumont Hamel. When we come back, we've got Dave, I believe it is. Or is it Dave? I don't know Who we got? Dave. Bill. Sorry, Bill. I got too many Daves in my life. I got Daves in both my, and I love them all. But Bill, I love you too. Well, at least I will love your call. Coming up next here on Open Line. Welcome back. Bill has been waiting. Bill, you got a post-secondary and some other things on your mind. What saith you?
Yeah, well, the post-secondary, I'll probably end up at the end, to tie it all in.
Okay.
But I like reading about local history.
Okay.
And the topic has come up about housing units and Newfoundland Labrador housing. And I sent you, I sent you an email yesterday, referenced a good paper on how we developed our public housing here in St. John's. It was called.
Yes, Dave did forward it. Yeah, that was forwarded on to me. I've not gone into it yet, but thank you.
Yeah, so that was a great paper, and that was done by sociologist and a geographer and a couple academics at Mon, and but they covered it pretty good. They covered how our public housing developed in the province, and and it starts back in after the Second World War. The Commission of Government had a surplus of money, and we always had a housing problem downtown. And I guess with the war years, things were pretty tight and everything too for accommodations and that. But after the war, with the surplus money, they built Churchill Park, and
right,
Churchill
yes.
Park. The Churchill Park. A lot of people think it's. A lot of people they just think that Churchill Park is just an area around the square. But the concept at the time of Churchill Park was all the way from Freshwater Road all the way to Torbay Road, includes both sides of Elizabeth Avenue. So that's where that suburb got its start. And
just let me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill. I was just going to say, and you're triggering this for me. I mean, after the war, there was a lot of this building in different parts of the country. They called housing like that veterans housing because they also wanted to make sure the veterans had housing. So there was you're right, and thank you. I'm just looking at your email. There was a lot of public build then. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So okay. So those were like mostly that was like a sub. That was mostly the Churchill Park. That the whole development, say the whole run of Elizabeth Avenue, and this is from a paper from Chris Sharp at our own Department of Geography and stuff, and he covers this pretty good. And anyway, a lot of money was built. They set up a plant and they made their own concrete pipes and everything, to run the sewers and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So a big pile of money was spent on that, to getting all that thing off the ground. So that was if you want to call it was a subsidized development. It was government money put into it, and it's single family homes. Okay, so it was for, if you want to call it, the middle class. No, they're not my terms; they're the terms that are used in the papers that I've read.
That are used. Yeah.
Okay, yes, right. And so that was Commission of Government that did that. And so the whole idea was it was supposed to be like a filter down effect. The intention was that people would move out from downtown, more affluent people maybe, and move into the Churchill Park that whole area, and it would make more housing available for people that were in pretty poor housing because, and that's another issue because how do we end up with poor housing? And you can trace that back to the 1892 fire, in that the 1892 fire wiped out the East End. Okay, it never wiped out the West End. It wiped out the East End. Left in the West End. In the West End was really old housing. Okay, very very old housing. Like some of the stuff there was there from even survived the 1846 fire. So we're talking about the central core there around City Hall kind of thing, but that was political. People called it downtown, but back in the day, with the political divisions and the parishes and all that, it was considered the West End. That was West End downtown. Okay, so I'm getting off the topic here a little bit, but anyway, so with Confederation and the federal government and CMHC started up. It was a federal housing program, and they offered 75% financing. And so so the provincial government under Joey Smallwood, he built all our so what they wanted to do was help the people with working poor people or people with lower income, and they came up with the scheme of our public housing neighborhoods that we got now.
Right.
And there's about 520 units were built, and people had to apply, and they had to show like proof of their income and being able to pay the rents and everything like that. And on that point, I'd just like to mention that in the Newfoundland Labrador Housing budget documents that came out in 24-25, that they shows that they collected rents of $25 million. So it's not insignificant. So people were paying rents, stuff like that there. So this was the thing for the people, the working poor, or people with low income, just working people and stuff like that. But and then we were talking about and your previous caller, Mike, really hit on a good point there. That I think Mike Murray, right? And he talked about he talked about the apparatus is all in place. The landlord is ultimately responsible for making sure that there's peaceful enjoyment for all the tenants in these places, and if they have to hire officers or whatever it takes, if there's problem tenants in any landlord's place, and he's ultimately responsible for taking care of that. And I've had to do that myself as a landlord, and so he said I think he mentioned there was a lack of intent or a lack of motivation to do it, but the people, there's people there to do that sort of thing, right? So the political will, or the official or bureaucratic will to do it is, so anyway, that's how we have and those units are right now they're 75 years old.
Yeah, some of them are quite old. Yeah, they were at one point. I remember. Yeah, I remember as a kid they were, particularly the Churchill square ones. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they were built between 50 and 56, 1950 and 56. So the units are 75 years old. And when you go back and read, people are really happy to get in there. It was a real improvement on the housing that they had, and because people were living in squalor conditions, not because they didn't have the money to pay for rent. It's just that's all that was there. That was the only housing and housing was tight, and they had to live in poor conditions. And and people got maligned because of the housing that they had to live in. So that's another issue too. But just if I can clue up now, I guess.
Yes.
With because Mike is he's in the justice system and he's seen it he's seen things from that angle, and I just say the justice system is a big industry. It's like so like people are getting in trouble, they got to have lawyers, right? Then you got to have sheriffs, and you got to have judges, and you got the courtrooms got to rent spaces and buildings and stuff like that. So it's a big industry, and a lot of times I suppose it is a revolving door for some people, and that's sad. But I just to tie it in there, but I was doing a little research on post-secondary education last September. And because I did the carpentry program up on the Prince Philip Parkway, and the thing about it is they've eliminated at least 3 trades programs up on that campus. The plumbing is gone, carpentry is gone, and I think they used to have machinists up there, maybe a few others. Okay, but that's a provincial training. That's part of the post-secondary education system.
It is part of
the provincial trades and technology schools, right? So if you got into a program with the provincial institution at your local trade schools, then it works out, and these are numbers from September last year. It works out that you pay about $2,500 a year, okay, to go in and get that training, to get that pre-employment, to get you on your start and say into an apprenticeship, okay. Now, today...
Got about a minute here, by the way, Bill.
Okay.
Just
all right,
go ahead.
Okay. If you're a kid in St. John's coming out of high school, okay?
Yes.
And you want to go, if you want to do plumbing or carpentry or maybe another trade or something like that that's not available at the Prince Philip Parkway anymore because they were eliminated, okay? You got to go to a private college, Okay, and that's a private college, and the tuition there is $20,000. Now that's a barrier
cheap
in anybody's books, right? Okay.
Yep.
So this is like, I think it ties in with the revolving door, and people that aren't participating. Okay, and that's probably how we end up with people like I don't know, it's not all the reason, but I mean, it certainly doesn't help.
It's the ecosystem of stuff we talked about yesterday with another caller. Everything connects to everything else, and you've done a good job of stitching it there together. I have to let you go. Really appreciate the call. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, yeah. Have a look at the article, Tim.
I will.
Really eye-opening, and it's a great piece of work, and it really gives an insight on how things are in our housing situation here in this city today.
All right, I will have a read of it, I promise. Thank you for calling, Bill. You have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I think we certainly have one other caller. We've got some other calls. We've got an interview I want to play, but if we don't have time for that, because we got calls, that's great. Elliot is waiting on the line. Elliot, you're next when we come back here on VOCM's Open Line.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Okay, we've got Elliot on the line. I believe, Elliot, you want to talk about an issue you're having? Share it with us, please.
Yes. Good day. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly, thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'm 79, and I'm bedridden. And I've been bedridden now for the last about 15 months, I guess. And I discovered something yesterday that sort of surprised me. I have voice control on my television, so I can, through Alexa, I can, get my television to turn my voice to turn on and off and adjust the volume, change the channels. And yesterday, I decided the problem with my Alexa, though, is it won't. None of these things will dial 911. So I have home care during the day. But at night, for about 14 hours overnight, I don't have home care. I'm here alone, bedridden. So and there's no car in my driveway at night. I have my lights on outside. Of course, I can't turn lights on or off inside yet. I could, I suppose, if I got the right equipment here, but there's no need for that. But I tried yesterday calling the 729-8000 for the RNC.
Right.
And everything is push button. You have to, for me to get a live person on the phone at the RNC, since I can't call 911, I have to push a button. And of course, I'm paralyzed. I can't push buttons. My home care worker is here now, and she made this phone call for me. So this is a big problem for me, and I know I can call, and I've done this before. I can call the St. John's Regional Fire Department. If I tell Alexa to call the St. John's Regional Fire Department, she will call it. Somebody will answer, and this is how I can get the police to come here if I'm being broken into. If my house is, if somebody is breaking in through my back door, whatever. So I have to call the fire department to get the police.
Alistair, I was going to, or Elliot, sorry, I had Alistair in front of me in my screen. I apologize, my bad. Elliot, I know my mother has a service. She doesn't suffer as you do. She's not paralyzed, but she does have, I believe it's called Lifeline, that she uses. I will check with her. That is all voice command. Okay. Let me check with her, and I'll tell Dave, and we'll reach back to you. Now, I don't know if that's a private. It probably is a private service, but she may all. Let's see what I can find out for you. I don't know off the top of my head, and certainly if any of the callers who are listening to my conversation with Elliot are able to help, please call us. But I know, again, they check on her. It's all done by voice. There's no other automated system. Sorry.
Okay,
So let me check on that, and we'll get you some info.
Well, yes, okay. Yes, I'd be interested in that. I've forgotten your first name.
Tim. It's all right. I called you Alistair, and you forgot my name. We're having a great day, hey, Elliot?
Yeah, have a great day. Yeah. I just wonder, you can get a person if you can punch at the RNC. You can get a live person if you can punch a number. So why can't you get a live person anyway? There are people there ready to take calls if you can punch a number. So I don't understand the RNC. I just don't understand this lack of service and discrimination against disabled people. No.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. We'll dig into it. They may have an AI program. Who knows, Elliot? Who knows? But thank you for calling. We'll do some digging and try and get some information for you.
Terrific. Okay, thanks, Tim. Have a good day.
All right, take care. You too. Bye. Daryl is on the line. Line 2 wants to talk political donations, which is where we started this show. Daryl, go ahead.
Oh, hi, Tim. How are you doing today?
I am good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. I can't complain.
That's good because there's a lot of people who can. So you bring your sunshine and light to us today, Daryl.
Okay, there you go. Appreciate you having me on your show there, Tim. Tim, what I want to talk about today is, as you started at the beginning of your show there, political donations and, that type of thing. And unfortunately, the way the system was geared that anybody can make political donations to any political party or whatever the case may be. It's just the way the system is now. And as we know, as of recent, came out who made what donations, and they made it well known and never hit it or whatever the case may be. But my take on it, Tim, is that personally, I think that no political donation shouldn't be allowed at all for any party, either the NDP, Independent, the PC Party, Liberal. It shouldn't be allowed at all because when donations are made or whatever the case may be, nature of the beast, and it happens with all parties that behind the scenes, whatever, people get looked after, whatever the case may be, and you see at times when they finish politics that there's always political appointments. Now, I'm not saying it's done because of that, but it's pretty ironic how things happen when they finish politics. I'm not saying one way or the other, but this is the way I perceive it. But to put stability and fairness into the system, that it shouldn't be allowed. No one should be able to make any political donations to any party whatsoever. And if anyone wants to run for political office or whatever the case may be, well, it's on your own to find your way or find your funds to get to where you want to be.
Yet, Daryl, we used to have some form of public financing of elections, and my memory's a bit rusty on this. That was federally, and there was concern about that, and you were rewarded as a party based on how you did, and that was in part designed to make it fairer and address some of the things you're talking about. I would say where I disagree with you is that you're going to disqualify certain people if it's only people who have money who can run, right? Because it's not cheap to do this. So my disagreement with you would be that that there be clear rules and they be fair and they be transparent. We have those nationally. The limits are pretty low, I would argue. They exist in other provinces. I hear what you're saying, but I think if you don't allow people to do the work to raise some money, you may get people who will never have the opportunity to run, and it'll only be wealthy people who are spending their own money running.
Well, yeah, there is merit to what you're saying there too, Tim, and you're right, because it is costly if someone wants to run and somebody with good potential and whatever the case may be. You are making a good point there as well, but on the other hand, when there's donations being made, and you see where I'm coming from as well, this is what happens. So the question is, how do we put good stability into the system, and yet we can bring good potential candidates to run and make a good contribution to society? It is a hard. You're sort of caught between a rock and a hard core there. Yes, there's no doubt about it. But I think we're going to have to take a good hard look at how things are done, because like what's happening now, and sometimes people got their own agendas. Why do you make the donations or whatever the case may be? I'll be wide open on it. I won't just narrow in on one particular thing as such. But we're going to have to come up with a system that makes it fair for everybody, because if not, this is the way things are going to go. And like so, this has been happening like from day one with all political parties. And so, this what we're going to have to really take a good hard look at the system and try to come up with a good, productive way that works for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that, Daryl. And look, we do have, I think Newfoundland is one of the very few jurisdictions in Canada that doesn't have any clear and strong rules. Federally, you can't, neither corporations nor unions can donate, which is an effort to deal with all of this. There are limits in what you can donate, and different provinces have versions of all of this. We don't really have anything. Anyway, I have to leave it there, Daryl. Appreciate the call and the conversation. Thank you for chatting with us today.
Okay, great. Again, Tim, you're doing a great job as usual, and all the best to you and staff at the VOCM and your listening audience, and have a great finish to your day.
I love the sunshine, Daryl. You have a good day too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you much.
All right, that's Daryl. When we come back after the last break, Vic wants to talk about political parties and housing. Back with Vic momentarily here on VOCM. Welcome back. Last 10 minutes of the show. Before I go to Vic, just want to tell Elliot that some help might be available to you if you go to the Coalitions of Persons with Disabilities in Newfoundland. You should be able to dial them through Alexa. They might be able to help. But we're still on this, Elliot. We'll keep digging. Vic, what's on your mind?
Oh, good morning, Tim.
Morning, sir.
Welcome back to the program, and good morning to the audience. It's been a while since I've been on open line. I was listening there to the gentleman pertaining to the housing. I remember now, I'm a very old man now. I'm hitting almost 90. And,
wow! Are you good for you?
My first house. I bought my first house, low income. In 1974.
Okay.
1974, Central Mortgage had a program. You could get a mortgage low income, okay?
Okay.
And the mortgage was to 35 years. A lot of people avail of that program. And I lived in that house for 11 years, and I sold it at a great profit. I'm totally against people renting. For instance, Newfoundland Liberal Housing. I've been in St. John. I came to St. John's in 1959. During that period, I think those Newfoundland housing units, which I was aware of, although I had nothing to do with them, but I knew people that lived in them. But I think they rebuilt them or refurbished them. I think it was. I kept a track of it because I think it was 5 times. Every 4 or 5 years, they refurbish and have to repair all those houses. So, from my experience, now I I also have. I'm a very, very. Personally, if I may mention my personal experience.
Go ahead, sir.
I work with construction for 10 years, and I'm a jack of all trades and master of them all. Okay.
I like that you're the master of them all, because I'm the master of none. But go ahead.
But anyway, so I worked till I was 69 years of age. And but Newfoundland Labrador Housing, the reason why they keep repairing those homes because they were made of very poor quality material. And anything for the poor man, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm against rent. Those people everybody should have their own home. Those people that they should be given, like I said, they had housing for us when I was low income in 1974. Why not bring that back? The other thing is like I said, but I did deal with Newfoundland Labrador Housing, I think, for a few years in my profession. I won't say what I worked at. I worked at everything. But they were, and I think when the first time I was induced to Newfoundland Labrador Housing. I think someone came in, gave us some of Newfoundland Labrador Housing they came in presenting what they had to offer from Newfoundland Labrador Housing. And my view to those people during that meeting was this: I don't agree with your programs or anything you're doing. I said people should own their own homes. And I said, I'm totally against rent because I never rented because I was brought up in the Oakport. In terms of trades, I think you had a guy on that talk about trades. Well,
he did, yeah.
I could build a house when I was 10 years old.
That is simply amazing to me, but if I may just gently interrupt for a second, Vic, you are of a generation of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians who were so blessed to be self-reliant, right? You knew how to do these things.
It was passed on. I was passed on. Now, of course, I moved to St. John's in '59, and my first house, when I did purchase, I did the rec room, etc. My son was 3 years old when he nailed down the 5/8 plywood in my rec room. He was 3 years old.
It's incredible.
Because I gave him two of them when he was 3 years old. In terms of trades, they should have the basic trades in school and high school. And I think the gentleman was talking about all the costs of private trade schools.
Right.
Well, I'm in favor of trade schools if they're providing business. And if you had the basic trades in high schools before you left high school, then you would decide if you're going to go to trade school or not. Okay, I went to trade school first on a personal note. I'm not blowing my own steam here this morning, but I also went to university. I was 30 years of age when I went to university.
Good for you. Can I say, I just want to pick up on one other thing you said, and we've got about 2.5 minutes, just so you know, Vic. You talked about people owning the homes, and again, from the generation you came from, I think this is such an admirable thing. Build it, invest in it, keep it, have pride in it, and because when you own things, the argument is that you want to take better care of them, you have better control of them. There's a point of pride in it. I love what you're saying. Do you think that would be applicable to a lot of people today?
Yes. I mean, I'm going to say that we're short of time here, but yes, people would look after their homes if they own them, and I think that should be one of the rights in our Constitution. That you should be able to own your own home, because once you own your home, you will care for your own home. I have the experience dealing with people renting, in some of my places I work. and I would never rent my home because I see the people that rented their homes that they were destroyed. I know a personal friend that had a couple of friends that had houses rented, and the houses were completely destroyed by the tenants. So, but if those people owned their own homes, yes, I think they would look after it. And that's the reason why I think it's a wonderful feeling to own your own home. The other point is, I see a gentleman call in about parties. Now, I'm no longer a party. I don't agree with the political parties anymore. I vote for the best person. I think the party system should be thrown out because they're not getting the people you require to run our province or whatever, if it's municipal politics or federal or provincial. The party system, to my point of view, should be shelved, and because you're getting people you don't really need in politics. Plus the fact, then they look after their friends, and you got people working. Maybe I think some gentleman mentioned the police force. Well, some of them have probably got in the police organization or the police force maybe through politics, or someone got a civil service job through politics or something else. I never had that experience. I had to get my own jobs and educate myself, and I paid for every bit of my education.
Well, and it sounds like it was well worth it. Vic, great chatting with you. Thank you for calling. Thank you for all that you shared. You stay well. I hope to be as vigorous and energetic as you at your age.
And I'm wishing the people, the listeners, that hopefully, that they'll buck up and look at our provincial system now and try to get rid of the party system. The other thing is, I have a great respect for our university, and we need more money to help more. We need more private help toward our university to keep that afloat.
All right, got to leave it there. Thank you, sir. You have a nice day. Pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you, Tim. Bye.
You're welcome. That's Vic. What a great way to end the call. And I love people of his generation. So resourceful, so thoughtful, live so much, share so much. What a great end of the show. Thank you for listening today. Some excellent calls. Thank you to Dave and everybody who helped out with the program today. Really looking forward to tomorrow. Not just because it's Friday, but we can have a lot of fun on Friday, which we will try and do. Brian Medor's coming up with the news in a second. And a big shout out to Brian's son Brady, who I just read is a U13B Newfoundland and Labrador hockey champion. So Brady, Brian, Sarah, is happy the Jays won. His son won. We all win today. Here's Brian with the news.